Good morning. My name's Norm Wakefield. I'm from the Spirit of Elijah Ministries International, and it's my privilege to provide the Homeschool Summit's morning devotional. Thank you for joining me. This morning I want to encourage you to be intentional about making much of Jesus Christ in the gospel. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Philippian church, "Make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose." What he means by being intentional here, being intent on one purpose, is we're to do this with purpose. Some other synonyms that might help us understand what it is to be intentional are words like be deliberate, be calculated, be predetermined. In other words, we're going to think ahead, count the cost, and plan to do it. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 27, Paul already stated what he intends them to be intentional about, and that is only conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel. Paul was encouraging the Philippian church, as he did all the churches that he wrote, that they were to make much of Jesus and the gospel, and that's what I want to encourage you to do. How intentional are you about going to heaven? How intentional are you about walking with Jesus Christ? I want to encourage you to be intentional about both of those things. That you don't just let those things happen. You actually think, this is what I'm doing every day. I'm on my way to heaven, and I intend to go there. I'm on my way to walk with Jesus today. Be intentional about everything that you do. I want to show you a clip. It's called Annie's Story. You can find it on YouTube. And I just think it is a great example of someone who is intentional about living to love, somebody who's intentional about loving with Jesus. And that's what I'd also like to encourage you to do, that today you have the opportunity to live to love with Jesus Christ, everyone that God puts in your path.
Hello, my name is Annie. I am from Austin, Texas. I work for Christ Together Greater Austin, and I help with events, social media, and kind of all hands on deck. My neighboring story happened one afternoon while I was working from home, but when I first moved in, I met one of my neighbors who we parked next to each other, and it was a super brief interaction. We exchanged names, but I didn't think that he would be very relevant in my life, so it kind of went in one ear and out the other. So after meeting him, really, we had very little interaction except smelling his pot through the walls every now and again. And other than that, I didn't think much of him, which is sad. But one afternoon, I pulled in after coming back from a meeting, and I was working in my apartment and watching TV, answering emails, taking phone calls, and I heard people running up the back stairs, heard them banging on a door, and so I turned the TV off and started listening, and after a while the door finally opened and he answered the door, and I heard the cop say, "It's APD, we're here for crisis intervention." I believe he called his mom, and then the mom called APD, but he was going to take his life. He'd been going to, I think, a counselor or something, and that they prescribed him stuff, but that the drugs were only making suicidal thoughts worse. They asked him why he made the claim to take his life, and he said because he was depressed. And really the conversation kind of went from there, and I didn't get to hear the end of the conversation. I heard them talk about taking him and to him get help and going to a treatment facility or something like that, but I don't really know how the conversation ended. I heard them leave, and then really after that, his car was gone for really 2 months, until literally last week or so. There was a moving truck outside. His car was back for an hour and a half, and I haven't seen him since. think the realization I've had after that is that, we can't always assume that there's a tomorrow, and something as important as knowing the people that live around you can't always be put off till tomorrow. Because in that moment when I started to pray for him, it just hit me so hard that I didn't even remember his name, because I didn't think to remember his name. And I'd kind of had the mindset moving in here that this would be, not permanent, that once I, got married and had my own house, then I would get to know those neighbors once I was settled. I think I just realized that we are where we are right now for a very specific purpose, and that you really never know what's going on around you, and for such darkness to be literally right down the hall was just heartbreaking. So it might be easier for all of you to watch me tell my story and see my journey and kind of point the finger, but I think that the reality of it is that there's a lot of people that are in my same spot, because we never really know what our neighbors are going through and what's going on around us if we don't take that first step. So I decided to share my story with you because I wanted to encourage you to take that step and get to know your neighbors and to truly love where you live. Hello, my name is Annie, and my story is not ending. It's just beginning.
So the lesson for today is to be intentional about walking with Jesus, be intentional about living to love, being intentional about going to heaven. Oh, may the Lord bless you today as you continue your journey to walk with Jesus Christ.